Welcome to the Worthy Writers Podcast. I'm your host, Kirsten McNeil, confidence and writing lifestyle coach and full service book editor working with self-published writers in fiction and memoir. This podcast empowers writers to embrace their sunflower sunshine as you write for yourself and share your work with unapologetic confidence and purpose. If you enjoy what you hear, leave a review and share with your friends. Let's jump in. Hello, worthy writers. Welcome to the podcast. Today, I am here with Alyssa Rodriguez, an alignment coach, and we're going to talk about celebrating yourself and aligning with your purpose. Thank you so much for being here.
It is my pleasure and my joy. Thank you, Kirsten.
Yeah, so why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure, I'd love to. First of all, hello, everybody. It's really special to share this space with you. I am a fond follower and supporter, celebrator of Kirsten and all her work. And so it's really special to be here. I do like to go by the title of an alignment coach only because I feel like in the online scene, there are so many kinds of coaches, and even just the title life coach gets a bit like general and vague. And so in a nutshell, I find that alignment is a great term because you're essentially just lining up with who you are. And that's the vision, like that's the visual I get often is what I'm doing or how I'm feeling in line with who I really feel I am. So a lot of what I create, what I like to share, the way I choose to express myself and to be in support of others has to do with that topic. Essentially just really knowing ourselves well enough that we could understand and we can be able to detect, okay, yes, this is me, this feels good, or hey, maybe something's off. You know what, that's because that's not really who I am. So I think that's basically how I would describe it. It's kind of a broad topic of being your, most authentic self, but I think that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all that. So getting into things with, celebrating yourself and finding your purpose, these are definitely big words to talk about. And I'm sure we could do like a whole podcast on purpose alone, but let us know a little bit about what comes up for you just with the word celebration, purpose, passion, things like that.
All right, that is awesome. So I would say I feel like the word purpose can be distracting sometimes because people often want to think about like, what is the thing that I do that would be my purpose? Like what is it that I would need to do? And what is the activity in essence of me performing my purpose? And I really think that the biggest breath of fresh air, the biggest relief I've experienced in my creative life is just realizing that my purpose is just to actually be who I am. And it sounds cliche or it sounds like very general, but really what I've noticed is it really doesn't matter what it is we decide to do with our lives. It's how we're doing it, who we are when we're doing it. That's where the real satisfaction will come, is when you're coming from the place of who you are rather than what it is particularly that you are doing. And so back to celebration, it's that fact that, oh my God, I am this very unique person. I have this incredibly specific set of dreams, preferences, all these things that make up who I am, the way I want to express, what I want to experience in this life. It's so distinct from other people. And the more that we get in tune with who we are, the more naturally we appreciate who we are. And I feel like sometimes celebrating in whatever way that feels good for you is a way to really kind of immediately jump into feeling really good about yourself and then just naturally going and do the thing that you wanted to do, because you're essentially starting from where you want to finish. So at the end of the day, what do we all want? We just really want to feel good. We want to feel like this deep satisfaction that I'm having the experiences I want to have, and I feel really good about who I am. So celebrating to me is really just a way to kind of take us to that place very quickly. And I do find it makes everything else that we do just a bit more fun. So I'll throw that in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes we seem to forget to connect with those things and what makes us who we are, what we enjoy in life. We just kind of go on autopilot and check off everything on the to-do list and gotta write, gotta do chores, gotta this, right? And it's hard for a lot of people to just slow down and be like, okay, I'm just gonna be with myself for a little bit, kind of check in with myself. We aren't often taught to just kind of connect with ourselves and relearn who we are, right? Because we're always changing.
Oh, Kirsten, I think like that is such a good point. I was literally journaling about that this morning, is the idea that who we are is always evolving, it's always changing. And sometimes we get confused, like, oh, I felt very inspired to do this today, but now I kind of don't want to do it anymore. And that's not to say that what you were set out to do isn't something to stick to and really finish out. But the idea, sometimes we get overwhelmed because we identify with the tasks, or we identify with what we think or how we feel people will receive us when we do these things. And so it doesn't, the really refreshing part is it doesn't have to be something super complicated or this big practice we have to have where, oh my gosh, I have to get back in alignment with myself. I have to figure out who I am. Really, it's as simple as pause, take a deep breath, just really give myself a moment to appreciate I am here, I'm in this space, and then, hey, how am I feeling right now? And, giving yourself a moment to really answer that. And this can be a matter of like 5 to 10 seconds. And what I do notice myself is I will do these things because for myself, I have created the habit of doing that. But what I'll notice is that it only takes an instant to kind of step back from some of the frustration or confusion I might be experiencing, and then just be like, hey, I got this. Like, hey, I know what I'm about. I know why I set out to do this. And you know what? It's only ever one step at a time. And then just feeling really good about that before you kind of jump back into whatever it is you were up to.
And I feel like a lot in the coaching online space right now is there's like a huge thing with like mindset. And to them, that means, oh, you have to like every day you have to journal and meditate and do yoga and do all the things for your, morning routine. And we forget about the little things we can do. Like you just said, like take a breath and like, how am I feeling right now? Like mindset doesn't have to be like this constant thing that we're working on. It's just like every once in a while, you kind of just need to check in with yourself and reevaluate and just kind of slow down. It doesn't have to be this constant like, oh, how am I feeling? How am I going to interpret that? How should I go forward? And all these questions with yourself. It's just kind of like, it's with everything. 5 minutes a day makes a difference kind of thing, right?
Oh, totally. And you know what? It's funny. I'm like a goosebumps person. So whenever I hear something that really feels true, I get goosebumps everywhere. And I was getting them as you were saying that, because I actually am a really firm believer in that life is not complicated. That's not to say that life is easy. It's oftentimes a challenge, but it's not as complicated as we give it credit to be. The actual mechanics of just like quote unquote living your best life is very simple. And I believe the reason for this is because you can only do one thing at a time. You can only be in one moment, and you're always in that next one moment. And so it sounds kind of funny, but when we give ourselves such an overwhelm of like tools and practices and ways to heal and all these things, but the list is endless. And what actually ends up happening oftentimes is we become overwhelmed by the idea of changing our mindset, or overwhelmed by the idea of I have to heal or I have to do XYZ. And really, your heart knows, like, what is inside of you is so intelligent, and it's always talking to you. It's always letting you know, hey, this is all you need right now. It's, you don't have to think 3 steps ahead. Like, this is what is good for you now. And that's where that just checking in from time to time, it is quite brilliant, because the more you do it, it's like anything else, it just becomes natural, it becomes automatic. And you're again and again starting to understand your own power and understand that, like, hey, I can trust myself above and beyond anything else. And I think that's just so important when we are, especially when we are creatives and we're constantly looking for ways to grow ourselves or to share or connect with other individuals or any way that we want to be received in this world. It's just so amazing to remember that, hey, anything that I need and everything that I desire, it starts with just knowing that it's all here for me. I can trust myself, and it's always in this moment.
Yeah. And I think with being creatives and stuff, we always have new ideas coming in. We have the imagination. It's almost like a blessing and a curse to have all these things, because it's good to have strategies and tools and knowledge, but then it kind of gets overwhelming so that it's kind of like a detriment sometimes. So I actually wrote a post the other day about just take a deep breath, ask yourself, what's in my control right now? So it's like what you said about being in the moment, and just like, we don't have to do all the things all the time. It's, you can pick and choose what you want to focus on today and just kind of go from there.
We really can. We really can. We really, it's what you said. And I think that, like, especially people who have a craft, people who are really creatively focused, understand this. Oftentimes the less amount of tools we have to work with, the more brilliant our creations are, the more it hones in our focus. It brings us present to what we're actually working with, which is our creativity. I feel like when we have almost too many tools, and then we're always gauging, like, is this better than that? Or am I doing enough here? Or do I need a better version of this? Whatever whatever we're dealing with. I feel like it can just really paralyze our ability to just move forward naturally. And so I really feel like this is directly connected to the idea of celebration, which it might not seem that way, but when you think about getting back to the root of things, getting back to the fact that you're just here to really enjoy who you came to be, or you're just here to really explore this project. You got this idea, it's a full-on yes, and you're taking steps forward, and it's like, hey, I'm actually just here to enjoy the process of this, not get bogged down on how perfect it could be, or all the other ideas that my mind might come up with that are impossible to ever answer or gauge. So I really like to keep it simple. I feel like the more reminders I personally have in the day that I actually don't have to figure that thing out, and I can just really enjoy what I'm doing right here, right now, everything takes care of itself. I'm good to go. I'm flowing with life, and I'm just generally happier.
I love that. Yeah, it seems like we tend to focus a lot on the finish line as opposed to living and just being, and living in the moment is something that, it sounds like broad and spiritual, and not everybody connects with that, but it's just like, if you focus too much on the future and what you have to do, like, you're not really celebrating yourself, and you're not focusing on, okay, look at all the things I have done. It's kind of that balance of past, present, future, right?
Yeah. And hey, can we take a moment for a second and just celebrate everything that we have done and where we have come from and who we have become? Because that's pretty amazing that we showed up on this earth like this little baby who couldn't feed themselves and had to wear diapers and had to learn how to talk and all these things. And here we are now, like full-fledged, aware and fully capable of accomplishing anything that we want. Even besides that, just no, I wouldn't say besides that, more importantly, putting the spotlight on just who we are, who our friends are, who are the people in our life that their lives are so much richer because they had the privilege to know us and to do this with us. Like, I don't know. I feel that it is so easy to miss, but it is always there for us. This remembering that it's pretty amazing that we're here, period.
Yeah. So what are some of your favorite ways to celebrate yourself?
Let's see. That is a beautiful, beautiful question. I would have to say, I think it starts with really checking in and asking myself, like, what feels good right now? The idea of celebrating myself, to me, it feels like what is it not only that I need right now, but what would it just feel really good, just for the sake of feeling good? Knowing that regardless of how I feel like I am performing in my life or what I'm accomplishing, like I'm already enough. I'm already perfect and whole and brilliant and a gift to the world. So just giving myself the gift of saying, hey, what would feel good right now? And sometimes in that moment, it's to take a break because I noticed I started feeling really groggy, or maybe I just need to go lay down for 5 minutes. I'm a mom of 2 kids, and it's just sometimes it can get distracting telling myself apart from these little ones. Well, I have a teenager and a 6-year-old. So it's like there's just never an end to what somebody might need of me. And sometimes it's like, oh, I'm noticing I'm not feeling really good. What is it that I need? And it's like, you know what? I need to just go to my room and close the door for 5 minutes. Like not be wound up with all the chaos. So that's an example of, it might not sound like, hey, I'm celebrating, but for me, when I come back out of that room in 5 minutes, I am feeling completely different. And at the same time, I'm aware that that's something I gave to myself. And look, I'm a happier person to be around because I just made that choice. And then another thing that I like to do is at least once a week, I do 2 different things. At least once a week, I take myself for a walk, and I kind of go on like a little walk with myself. Sometimes I'll pick like a park to go to, or sometimes it'll just be around my neighborhood. But I just feel like that's a really important time that I dedicate to doing something that feels really good and just being alone with me. That theme might come up a lot if you talk to me. Is like, when can Alyssa have a minute to herself? And then the other thing that I do every week, I learned this from the artist Julia Cameron, and she has a practice of going on what's called an artist date. And it's essentially just one thing you pick a week, and you just take yourself somewhere where it feels like a little date, but it's for the sake of like you're feeling inspired or feeling creative or connecting with something tangible, like physical, that makes you feel just really nurtured. And so for me, that might be going to like a thrift store and browsing like the journal section and just finding like random little books or things like that I might pick up for scrapbooking. Or it could be, I don't know, I've been going to thrift stores a lot, so that's all I can think about. I don't know, just like pick a place. It could be, a record store, or it could be a flea market or whatever, but some place where you're physically connecting with something that really feels nurturing to one creative aspect of yourself. So and you only do it for the sake of going like on a date with yourself. And it's like this date you have, but it's for the sake of feeling nourished, feeling creatively excited about something. So I'm sure someone else could describe it better. But that's like how I see it is I'm designating times in my life where it's consistent. It's showing myself that I care for my well-being, for my creativity. I'm putting myself out in the world in ways that open me up and feel like it's not just me celebrating, it's the world that I connect with that also says, hey, I'm losing my words to describe it, but get what I'm saying? It's like I'm connecting with something tangible that also says, hey, like, I'm so glad you're here in this world. Look at this cool thing I have to show you. So I hope that made sense, but that's kind of a regular part of what I like to do for me.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean. And you reminded me of a video I saw on Instagram the other day, and I can't remember the exact wording, but basically this woman said that it will always be unhealthy to give yourself over to one person wholeheartedly and never focus on yourself. And you described it perfectly, where it's just like you need to have those moments for yourself. And self-care, which is self-care is kind of a buzzword lately, but be with yourself. And I know we kind of keep repeating the same things over, but it's worth repeating, right?
Oh, totally. And like if you were to obsess over one person, just like let that be you. Because like when you think about it, if every individual on this planet just really nurtured their heart, nurtured what they felt like they were here to do, we'd all just be fine. We'd all just be coexisting and co-creating in a way that felt like it respected and honored and celebrated one another. And at the end of the day, like we may want to help or serve or support other people, but the best way we can do that is just by being a living, breathing example of that and letting people kind of just see, hey, that's an option too. Like I could also take time for myself and sit in the park and just, sit down with a cup of coffee and just really take a minute. And I love that. I love the idea of just going about your day and just being kind of a light to people and showing that like there's a different way to do things and it doesn't all have to be grind and it doesn't all have to be based on like guilt or just anything that doesn't feel right, that doesn't feel natural. Yeah, I really think it's important what you were saying.
I just had this thought the other day of just like perfect is such like a subjective thing because it can mean different things to different people. Like what really does perfect mean, where it's just like it's kind of feels good to you. That saying beauty is in the eye of the beholder, that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that perfection is the most relative and it's temporary. So what I mean by that is nothing when I would describe something as being perfect, it doesn't mean it's complete. It just means that what it is in that moment is just right. And part of that is also living in acceptance, like not being like, oh, that thing over there that's negative is really okay. That's not what I mean. But acceptance is whatever is coming up is just, it's okay. And actually, when we just make peace and allow life to happen in a way where obviously we're creating the way that we want to. But when I say this, I mean like seeing the beauty of what's all around, like without needing to control it, without needing to label it and call it bad. This is it's like a gateway into understanding the perfection of life. We all of a sudden realize like how miraculous everything is kind of functioning together and how who you are as you are in this moment is so amazing. I find this like kind of a difficult topic to get into because it gets very like ambiguous and like, I don't know, like airy or whatever, but like in a real tangible way, I feel like perfection is seeing whatever you are doing or whatever you're feeling in the moment as being just right for you. That's like the best way to put it is like what is right for you. It's perfect. It's all good. And letting that next moment show you what's next.
I really love the way that you said that because it's just with creativity and, writing and painting, whatever other art forms that you do, it's just like it's meant to be imperfect, which is another word that you can describe in so many different ways, but it's just meant to be, it's meant to exist. It's just meant to help you explore and just get your thoughts out, get your feelings out. And there's so many aspects to it that I feel like we could talk about that for another hour, but like, there's just creativity is just so broad, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like you think about it, you're always creating if you're paying attention. So like when you make a meal, you might just be, oh, I'm just like throwing something together because I've done this a million times before and I'm like feeding myself so I don't feel like the feelings of hunger and I can function. Or you could pause and say, hey, like what do I have with all these ingredients in the fridge that would seem the tastiest right now? And then you just kind of take those things out and you have your hands on whatever food you're working with. And then all of a sudden you're putting it together in a way that looks really pretty to you. And it might at the end of the day just be the same sandwich you were going to make before, but the experience was quite perfect because it was an unfolding. It was you saying, I'm going to make this thing and I'm going to extract from it everything that I can. And that might sound kind of gross when you're talking about a sandwich, but like, you know what I mean? It's like creativity is simply the act of making anything. And you could be making things in your imagination, in your mind, or you can be making things in the physical. But either way, it's your attention to it and your appreciation for that. That you're the one bringing this about. That to me is what it is. Like it hits it right on the nail there is I'm the one choosing this. I'm the one making this experience happen, and I'm the one who gets to enjoy it. Well, that's pretty awesome. And then you get to do that with all the things.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. Yeah, so as we start to wrap things up here, is there any final words of wisdom that you want to share just about creativity or celebration, anything like that?
Yeah, I would say always do whatever you're going to do just for the sake of doing it. It's okay to have like big lofty dreams and big projects and even have like really important deadlines, and all these things are great. They all serve a purpose. But if you find that more and more you're doing anything you do just for the sake of doing it, you will kind of unlock a different level of experience, and it will teach you about yourself in a way you've never known before. And probably a lot of you already experienced this, but the idea of really knowing yourself, it only happens when you are present to like how I want to say the naturalness. I feel like that's not like the right word, but how natural it is for you to be you. That's where you really learn. Like when you learn, oh, what feels easy for me? What feels really good? What feels really supportive? What feels inspiring? All these things are kind of questions that can be going on in the background while you're doing what you do. So I would say, and it's not complicated, you're just simply, I'm doing this and it feels good to do this. Oh, I'm doing this, it doesn't feel so good. Okay, well, that's an opportunity for me to check in and see if there's a different way of doing it or something completely different to do altogether. And I understand you can't do maybe this with every single task you do. There's going to be things we don't enjoy, but I would say if, we're speaking to a creative crowd, that we know what we're capable of. We know our power, and we know that again and again, we can choose to do something just for the sake of doing it. And it's kind of just something fun to explore. Like, what could happen if I just dropped all strings attached and said, I'm just going to really enjoy what I have set out before me right now. So yeah, a lot of the whole live it in the moment thing, but I really think that is something that is just kind of logical. It's like, that's where we live, is right here, right now. So you might as well enjoy the ride, and you might as well give yourself the gift of really being able to express yourself in the way that feels most authentic. So that is what I would say about that.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. So if anyone wants to connect with you, where can they find you?
Sure. I like to keep it simple. So all the different ways you can connect with me can be found in my Instagram bio. I do have a website. It's hometribeoracle.com. And then my Instagram handle is hometribeoracle as well. You will see my name, Alyssa Rodriguez, in there, but that's where I kind of just keep it all in one spot. Instagram is basically where I show up. So yeah, and I'm always happy to chat and meet new people. It's just a very easygoing, welcoming place to be. So if you're ever curious or want to say hi, that's where you can find me.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Alyssa. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, it was awesome. And it was short and sweet. And I hope everybody just goes off and has the best feeling day they can and knows that they are doing awesome. You're all rock stars.
That concludes today's episode. Thanks for listening. To all you worthy writers out there, whether you're new or experienced, if you're looking to explore who you are as a writer more deeply, understand what you want from your writing journey, and build a plan to transform all your writing dreams into a reality, I'm ready to work with you in a 90-minute coaching session. If you want a free teaser showing you what it's like to work with me first, download the digital journal Create with Purpose, 7 writing prompts, and a 30-minute video call. Create your desired writing life and share your sunflower sunshine with the creative community by partnering with me, Kirsten, as your confidence and writing lifestyle coach. Check the show notes for the link to the freebie. See you soon. Thank you for listening to the Worthy Writers Podcast. Did you enjoy this episode? Leave a review, then subscribe to the Worthy Writers Confidence newsletter for stories from my life and tips on building a desirable writing journey. Ready to be a guest on the podcast? Contact me through my website. My link tree is in the show notes with all the places we can connect. Welcome to my community. Happy writing, worthy writers!